Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about 5 things to expect in flight attendant training. Now, if you just stumbled on this video and you haven't seen any of my previous videos, I got to give you a little insight. I am a flight attendant instructor at a major US airline and therefore also a flight attendant for that major US airline. And I've been posting a few videos here and there going through the flight attendant experience. My most recent video, if you haven't seen it, is all about potential questions and answers to help you prep for that flight attendant interview. And then I have other videos on the different aspects of the flight attendant lifestyle and also just the job itself. And before we get started on a personal level, I don't normally have my hair this long. Usually it's all cut and whatnot. I'm actually growing it out right now, so I'm in the Jim Halpert phase. And I am a small gust of wind sneaking through that window or the AC kicking on from flying away. So let's dive right into it. So this video is centered around the training experience, what to expect for flight attendant training. Now, some people call it flight attendant school, which cracks me up. Y'all, it's not school. You're not going to school to be a flight attendant. You are training. So you do have to pass the training course to be a flight attendant. So I understand why people call it school, but it is flight attendant training. I always add this disclaimer in my videos. There are 2 different paths to flight attending. There's regional and there's mainline. Regional will be the much smaller plane, smaller operation, smaller company, while mainline is the big boys, right? It's Delta, United, Southwest, American. Now, nothing against regional, however, my experience is with mainline. So for purposes of this video, when I talk about the training experience, I'm talking about mainline. But just to get it out of the way and also give you a good reference point, training to be a regional flight attendant will be much shorter. And I'm talking like maybe 2 to 4 weeks for regional as compared to 5 to 8 weeks for mainline. Now, I do want to say, don't base your decision off of training alone because yes, with a shorter training time, with regional, you get the job faster, right? You get in there, you learn your aircraft, you get your wings and you go to regional. But mainline will pay more, have better benefits overall. And so regional is a good starting point, but please don't base your decision to be a flight attendant off of the training experience itself. Mainline is a lot longer, but of course will be worth it in the end. Now, you've crushed the interview. You've received your conditional job offer, and that is exactly what it sounds like. It is a job offer based on conditions. The conditions are that your background check comes back clean, of course, you pass training academically, and that you prove yourself to be who you said you were during that interview. So now you get your training dates. As I mentioned before, it could be 5 to 8 weeks depending on the airline you applied for. Something else to keep in mind when you get these dates is it paid or is it unpaid? And that fully depends on the airline. A quick Google search will tell you exactly what you want to know. For example, Delta pays per set of scheduled hours at minimum wage. Southwest offers a type of stipend for food. And I believe United actually offers a stipend for food as well, non-taxable. It's like $140 a week, something like that. And that was just off of a quick Google search I did. So definitely do your research when applying for these airlines or when you're getting ready for training. And from what I found, they all put you up in a hotel if you are a certain distance from the training center or from whatever base that airline is operating at. And of course, that's airline specific, so some may have a further range, some may have a shorter range, you may have to drive there. But if you are outside the state or you're outside that certain range, most of these airlines will actually pay for and put you up in a hotel of their choice. Now, of course, you're gonna get a list of what to bring and what's expected of you, depending on that airline's culture and expectations. So, because I can't talk about every single airline and their specific culture and their specific expectations, I am going to be generic. But at least this gives you a good idea of what to expect in the training experience. And this way, that when you apply and you get your CJO or your conditional job offer, that you're not just sitting there waiting for your training center dates in the dark, wondering what am I supposed to expect? I got you. And let's start now with number 1, expect written exams. And no, this isn't pencil and paper written exam. There's no essay questions or math problems. Honestly, more than likely in 2023, you're working on iPads, multiple choice, that type of written exam. So to break this down, you'll be in a classroom setting for the most part. You'll be taught about aircraft, terminology, procedures, commands. Then at some point, you have to show that you've retained what you've been taught. And the reason makes sense, right? I mean, you're gonna be working 35,000 feet in the air with a manager nowhere in sight. You've got to deal with whatever happens. So the airline's obviously gonna wanna know that you didn't just sit there and say, oh yeah, I understand, and then send you up there. No, they're gonna need to know that you actually comprehend the material. But do not let this freak you out. If you're one of those that's like, I don't test well, that makes me really nervous. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, your life in training will be eating, breathing, sleeping, living the flight attendant lifestyle and learning the policies and procedures in that airline. I can assure you, you will shock yourself at how much you retain and how much you end up actually knowing by the end of the day, the week, the training experience. And in another video, I'll talk about tips and tricks on how to pass flight attendant training, but for this video, I'm just talking about experiences. However, because I know testing makes some people anxious, I will give you this little helpful hint now. And it seems obvious, but hear me out. Pay attention in class. Because as I said before, you are unmanaged flying above the earth. You want to know how to handle situations and what the policies and procedures are because you don't have someone to call. You are literally flying through the air. So make sure you understand the material. For example, when you're on a cruise and a fire breaks out, you stand there and you think, oh my gosh, somebody do something. Well, on the aircraft, when you're the flight attendant and there's a fire on the aircraft, you can't sit there and think, somebody do something, because that somebody is now you. So you've got to know what to do. Passengers are depending on you in that emergency. So it's obviously expected that you pay attention in class. And I'll tell you right now, if you pay attention in class, truly attempt to learn. Ask questions that pertain to the lesson when you really don't understand. And I'm not talking about what if questions. Stay away from what if, all right? We can talk about what if all day long. Let's talk about the policies and procedures pertaining to this event. Focus on the need to know, not the nice to know, and you're gonna be golden. Number 2, a roommate. There is a pretty decent chance that if you require a hotel, then you will probably get a roommate. Now, it is possible that once you watch this video, some airline, whatever airline you're applying for, has changed their policies, and so you don't have a roommate, but you know what? It's pretty standard, so go ahead and just mentally prepare to have a roommate in a hotel if that's what you require. And I'll say it again, mentally prepare for it. It's way better to be prepared to have a roommate than to go into it thinking, oh, I won't have a roommate, and then be shocked when you do. And here's the deal. We are all grown adults. When applying for mainline, you have to be 21 years old. You are an adult. And yes, 5 to 8 weeks, let's just say 6. Let's just say 6 to make it easy. 6 weeks of training. 6 weeks to have a roommate is a long time. But you're at training for one purpose and one purpose only: to get your wings, get the job, go enjoy, go fly. And remember in the beginning of the video when I mentioned the conditional job offer, and part of that condition is to see that you are who you presented during the interview? Yeah, you having a roommate for 6 weeks can really bring personalities out. So airlines will know, hey, did you handle it well or did you handle it poorly? Because during the interview, anyone can sit there and say, hi, yes, no, I would love the job. Absolutely, yeah. Christmas, work on Christmas? Not a problem, I'd love to. Oh, people, love people. I love to travel, I love people. Anyone can have that type of interview. But now that you have a roommate for 6 weeks, personalities will come out. And I hear you, right? What if my roommate XYZ? What if I'm the perfect roommate and my roommate is just, deal with it. Handle it. Handle the situation. Unless it's something serious or it jeopardizes safety, it makes you uncomfortable, right? Obviously, there's special circumstances where it's like, nope, hey, hard no. Otherwise, deal with it. An example, I like to fall asleep with the TV on. I like that background noise. When I was in training, for the first couple weeks of training, I would actually have the TV on, and of course, my roommate, right? It's 2 beds like this in a hotel room. My roommate would allow that. So for 2 weeks, I fell asleep with the TV on. Not a word from my roommate. And one night, out of nowhere, he popped his head up and he's like, hey man, I can't, I'm struggling sleeping. Like I tried to let the TV be on, didn't say anything, but I'm really struggling falling asleep. Do you care to just turn it off? And you know what I did? After he had the audacity to ask me to change something about my life for his comfort, I turned the TV off. I didn't fall asleep with the TV on for the next long portion of training until it ended. And him and I were friends. We're still friends. We talked it out. If we had concerns, we brought them up. We were simply adults about it. We made the best of a situation that we normally wouldn't be in because both of us were there for one purpose: to get our wings. So make concessions, talk it out, be an adult, make it work. Number 3, you will perform in front of your peers. This really isn't a big secret, and it shouldn't really come as a surprise because, like I said earlier, you will be handling situations, manager free, up in the air. So if an emergency arose, you're gonna be nervous. Heck, I teach this stuff, I would be nervous. Anybody would. So there will be some type of performance-based testing, and you should be able to handle an emergency, any emergency you've learned, in a performance-based scenario. And if that makes you nervous, you're not alone. And let me say this once more. you're gonna be fully prepared. You'll have learned the procedures, practiced it multiple times. Just breathe and do not overthink it. All right, small little bit of advice here. Again, I'll put this in my next video as well, but just for you right now, here it is. If I asked you, what would you do if a fire broke out on the aircraft? If it was just boom, in the aisle, there's a fire on the aircraft. Be as simplistic as possible. What would you do? If there was a fire in the aisle on the aircraft, you would put it out. That's it. Put it out. Put out the fire. Boom. Success. Done. Nice job. Don't overthink it. Performing in front of your peers does not have to be scary. Number 4, the majority of your training is regulation and emergency procedures. Let's be real for a second. Anyone can pour a Coke. Anyone can smile. That's really the surface level part of our job. Greet people, smile, serve. That's day to day. And also it's kind of human nature, right? In a civilized society, just smile, hand them the drink. I mean, customer service kind of comes naturally for the most part. So because of that, that's not really going to be your focus in training. For example, of 6 weeks of training, customer service might be 6 days. The rest is all about the FAA or Federal Aviation Administration regulations, emergency procedures, and evacuation commands. Customer service can easily be learned quickly on the job, but evacuations or emergencies, hopefully you'll never encounter, but if you do, that's gonna be abnormal. It's gonna put you in an uncomfortable position, so you've gotta be able to handle that. So that's why it makes up the majority of training. Like if you crashed into the ocean, right? That's not exactly a normal thing. So you'd have to know what rafts you could use, or you'd have to know survival techniques. And the reason I mention this portion is because if you go into flight attendant training thinking it's all going to be smiles, cookies, and greetings, you're wrong. And it can be kind of a shock if that's what you expect. Again, customer service is a major part of our job, but customer service comes second in comparison to safety, which safety is number 1. So that's what you're going to be primarily learning in training. Last but not least, number 5, compliance is key. Look, you're gonna have enough on your plate, from commands to learning aircraft to simply learning that specific airline's procedures and policies. So, have you ever noticed how put together flight attendants look when they're in like the terminal, right? When they're walking gate to gate, how they come across as uniformed, confident, very in control. Well, that's because they're in compliance with their dress codes and, again, their specific airlines regulations. So assume training will be like that, how compliant they are, except even more strict. And with that being said, your expectations are going to be laid out very, very clearly. So while you're in training, don't even risk it. If you're about to put something on, I want you to consider for just a moment, is this compliant? Is this okay? And if you have to ask yourself that question, just don't do it. Don't wear it. Instead, wear what you know is compliant, and then take a picture of the item or whatever piece of clothing that you have that you're like, you question. Take a picture of it, take it to the training center, ask your instructor or ask the coordinator at the training center, is this compliant? And if they say yes, great, wear it the next day. If they say no, then you're in the clear because you wore what was compliant. Because if you just wore that item, that piece of clothing, whatever, and it ended up not being compliant, and a conversation was needed, whatever the airline does, to kind of document it or call it out. Why add that stress to your life? It's not necessary. And you were there at training, like I've said this whole time, for one purpose and one purpose only: get your wings. So get in, do what needs to be done, learn the job, and be a great flight attendant. Get your wings, get out there, fly, enjoy. That's the whole formula. And being compliant is one of the easiest things to do to keep stress out of your life during training. And those are 5 things to expect in flight attendant training. Y'all, I hope this video helps. Comment below if you have other training center experience or expertise or advice you'd like to leave. And as I mentioned earlier, I will do a YouTube video next week where I talk about the tips and tricks of passing training. Y'all, make sure and subscribe. Thanks for watching the video. You can follow me on Instagram at Easton Explores. You can shop my Amazon storefront, follow my latest podcast episode with Everything with Easton, all in the link in the description below. I'll talk to y'all next week. God bless.